Today I'm very excited. I have Dr. Cate Clouet as my guest, and Chris is a known commodity, if that's okay to say, but he's an amazing person. I first met Chris in 2004 maybe, and he was previously superintendent in New London. That's when I first met him. He is on the city council, 2026, newly elected. Magnet School coordinated the regional multicultural magnet school and then the Learn program. He was previously a professor at Mitchell College in New London, head of the educational department and taught ethics. Superintendent previously in New London, 2004 is when I first met him. So he got his PhD from Columbia Teachers College, and amazing, bright, bilingual, active, out there, and we're going to talk all about him. And I think the important conversation, Chris, thank you so much for being my guest, is that we need to talk about like the importance of involvement. Like why are you so involved? Like you've done your work. Why don't you just sit back and I don't know, go kayaking with your granddaughter every day?
Which I love to do, of course, but I just feel like there's so much to be done. And there's so many challenges facing the world, both locally and globally, as I think your viewers would agree.
Absolutely.
And I just think that if I'm in good health and of sound mind, and I am in, and I'm following, really, to be honest, in my mother's footsteps. She did. My siblings all say, "Oh yeah, just like mom."
Oh boy.
And I can't help it. So
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of George H.W. Bush's 1,000 Points of Lights, and we have those 1,000 points of lights, and just the magnitude of change and the possibility that can happen as a result of that.
Absolutely.
But I want to circle back to your mom, because you told me a story the other day about your mom, and that she was on the Board of Ed where you were living. Tell me about that.
Well, it was, so I was a young lad at the time, and this was in the 60s, and she was running, she had filled a position, and she was running, and she ran on a pro-integration and pro-sex education in a modest 60s way, just the fact that you could even have sex education.
Just have a conversation, talk about it, right? Like, it's not something that you don't know about.
Right, and learning about it scientifically is better than learning about it in some other ways, perhaps.
Exactly.
I feel that way, certainly. But in any case, I was the hander-outer of pamphlets and flyers and that sort of thing. But when I recently was asked to run for the city council in New London, they said, well, have you had any experience door knocking and canvassing? And I said, oh yeah, about 50 years of experience. So they said, that's not possible. And then I told this story, they said, it's possible.
It is possible, and that's a great story. So you're following in your mother's footsteps and carrying on her legacy, and I don't think there's anything better than that. And the name of my show is called Stories Worth Telling, so there you've already hit one out of the park. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Now, I know you're really interested in intergenerational work and relationships and education, and all of those kind of come together with the work that you're doing. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Well, the mayor Passero of New London, Mike Passero, appointed me to be the chair of the Intergenerational Action Committee.
Okay.
I asked him if he would do that,
sure.
and he did. And so I have I'm the chair. I have two vice chairs that are younger people, and we host different sorts of events. We've already had a knitting club pairing elders with younger kids learning how to knit, which is a thing now.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Sometimes they're called grandma hobbies, and they're back in fashion.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
And so it's interesting to see that. I cannot knit, so I'm just the convener. I open the door and hand out the snacks, but a number of people that are very good at it sit with the kids, and we've done some baking things where kids learn how to bake cookies. With Stephanie Lopez, who runs a small business in New London called Late Night, where she makes fancy cookies, and so they're gourmet cookies. But she taught those kids. They put on their gloves, they rolled the dough, they made the cookies, they played. The cookies came out, they ate, and the elders that helped them do it, there were grandmothers involved and the younger kids. So there's lots of opportunities.
And they'll sit down and have cookies with them, and maybe a glass of milk or water or something, and
100%.
It's all about those conversations and really just, I don't know, sharing the moment. And I always think what special moments those are. And my grandmother taught me to knit. She would come every summer, and that was one of the things that I remember, and I would help her with holding the yarn, and those are just such precious memories. Now, my kids they knew one of their grandparents. No, actually, that's not true. I knew only one of my grandparents, my grandmother, and that was the only one. So she was so important and special to me. So I'm thinking that I might not be alone in that. Other people are filling that gap that might exist for other kids as well.
Absolutely. And so part of the challenge then is to how to organize it in a way that's inviting, safe, everyone feels comfortable, and safe meaning like, is there transportation? You know, it's one thing to get kids after school to come to like the community rec center, and then how do they get home, and all of those things. So that's part of, those are some of the logistical challenges that we're working on, but we're working on them. Those are things that can be solved. And then to your point, there's a lot of younger kids that don't have the experience of being around grandparents very often, and there are a lot of older folks that don't have the experience of having their grandchildren around, and if you can connect those two people, it's a great thing.
It's a win-win. Everybody's happy. The grandparents win. They have some emotional involvement and attachment. And I think I mentioned to you my friend Melanie Greenhouse, and she's a playwright locally. She does an intergenerational poetry project, and it's just so beautiful because she comes and she gets the stories, and that might even be something that we could put into New London as well.
I would love to meet her and talk about that. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be great.
But you know, like for instance, there are as we know, the planet Earth's population continues to grow, although it may be slowing down a little bit. But it's the case that in China, for instance, by the year 2030, they will have a population of people over the age of 65 that is bigger than the entire population of the United States. So, and that's just one country. So there are more older people alive now than there have ever been in the history of the world. And so what does that mean? Can we do something positive with that? And it's not for everyone. Some people might say, I'd prefer to stay home and watch TV. That's fine.
What do you say, the older person or the younger person?
Both. Yeah, exactly. Right.
No, I'm just curious because I think if the older person can get out there, and I actually know some people who are older who would really benefit and want to volunteer for that program, because where I live in East Lyme, hopefully you would allow neighboring communities to come and do that, because I've connected some of my friends, older friends, with Melanie Greenhouse's program, but then the program ends and then they're kind of left without that buddy, that person in their life.
And that becomes part of the challenge. How do we offer opportunities that are real, that people can continue to meet, whether it's over cookies or learning recipes or knitting or just talking about what was life like. For instance, I work with the Rotary Club in New London right now, and they are interested in intergenerational activities as well.
I love that.
And they're very forward thinking about it, and the issue of exchanging stories. And I'm a very big proponent that not only can the young people learn from the elders, hearing their stories, but the elders can learn some things too from the younger people. Like,
absolutely.
What is it like to have a phone in your hand all the time, and what do you do with it, and why do you do it, and then what did you do, and et cetera.
Well, my brother is doing some stand-up comedy, which is really funny, and he talks about how old he would be if he was in dog years, and then he talks about being an Irish setter because he has kind of reddish hair.
That's
so
fun.
It's very funny. So yeah, the same kind of thing though, and he talks about his son would say, "What did you do before there was a television, Dad?" So yeah, and we know what it was like before there was television. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, and I think a lot of good can come out of it. And then some of it is just there's a crisis of loneliness in many places, and to have people that don't have a lot of connections, just to make some connections is a good thing.
Well, in loneliness, I think that's the easiest thing that we can cure. If there's one thing we can do is to connect people, and it's all about those connections. So if somebody was interested in doing that, how would they reach out to you, or how would we make that possible?
Yeah, if they could reach out to me at my email from the City Council,
which would be what?
Which is Clouet, CLOUET at newlondonct.gov.
Okay. So that's good to know. So people can reach out to you, and then they can just say, "Hey, I'm interested in this," and
new ideas. I love if someone comes up with something that is brand new. That'd be great. Let's talk about it.
Well, and I know that we talk a lot about just like the whole cooking thing. And my mother made all of our meals. There was no real hamburger helper and all that stuff back in the day. She made all of our meals, and she was able to afford some decent meals, and it wasn't, it was healthy, it was nutritious, and it wasn't expensive. She was able to pull things together. So kind of, I think, even money management, some of those home ec skills that aren't really taught anymore in different places.
Absolutely. When I was superintendent in White Plains, I was asked to teach a series of Saturday morning courses for cooking for boys. And so they were young teenagers, and they and they hadn't really been taught how to cook for whatever variety of reasons.
Sure.
And so I would, had a couple of meals that I knew everyone would like to eat. That was key, but that we would make together. And it was like 35 boys. And we would all cook and make stuff, and then the idea was that they could learn how to cook for themselves as they got older.
Nice.
And then I point out that I used to work as a cook, and of course they always look at me, the elder guy. They say, "You worked as a cook?" I said, "Yes, I did." And guess what? I got paid, and I got free food too. They're like, "Oh, this is interesting."
Not bad too.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of restaurant work back in my day too.
Right.
So. Okay, so you brought some pictures, so maybe we should go through some of those, because I think those, pictures worth 1,000 words. Those will tell so many different things about where you are, because I think you're all over. Oh, here's the first one. Who's in this picture?
Well, this is the St. Patrick's Day Parade in New London, and this is me in the back with flashing a peace sign with a Keel Peck, who's to the man with the striped shirt, who is is on the city council with me, and then to my right with a whaler's cap on is State Rep Dan Gajewski.
And he just got elected.
Yep, and he's doing a fabulous job.
Good.
And then the woman in dark glasses is Elaine Maynard Adams, who is the chair of the Board of Education.
She's on the Board of Ed in New London currently. Okay.
She is. And then the star of this picture is Valerie Tamano, who was the marshal that day of the parade. And she and I worked together very closely when I was superintendent here, and she and I also started the New London Education Foundation, which is now a foundation which raises money to give scholarships to kids.
Oh, congratulations on that. I love that concept. And what is she holding? What was that?
I think she was holding flower. She was given a bouquet of flowers by virtue of being the marshal for the
And then
day.
it is an Irish flag banner sash that she has
So she
on.
was the Grand Marshal.
Beautiful, beautiful, and she's a lovely woman.
She is.
Yeah.
And that's me to the left with my colleague Efrain Dominguez, who's a member of the City Council in New London, as well as a teacher at the middle school. And he and I have known each other for a long time.
What is his subject area? I didn't know he taught.
He's a teacher. He works with bilingual children, multilingual children.
Okay.
And he's invited me to his classes sometimes to give a talk on, ecology or something. But I speak Spanish pretty well, and I speak Portuguese as well because I used to live in Brazil.
Trilingual. I didn't know that. Wow.
And then the man with the white,
Nolan. That's Representative Nolan.
Yes. Anthony Nolan, who does a great job as state representative, and he and I worked together when I was superintendent. He was a school resource officer, and he was very creative. And he introduced me to things that I would have never thought of, like having a bunch of dads bring in all their old gear for video games back in those days. Of course, now that's all on,
like Atari.
Yeah,
and
they would
stuff
bring,
like
but the
that.
guys would come in
Pac-Man.
and we'd set them up around the tables, and then kids got to play and learn, and it was just fabulous. And he did a lot of things like that.
And I remember him talking about peace officers, not police officers, but PEACE, peace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this is why and then just in the picture, the last person there, last but not least, is Josh Posey, who is the director of Park and Rec,
Youth Affairs, is it?
Yeah, Youth Affairs and Recreation Department.
Okay,
Yep.
and I know Josh too. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy and does great work.
I coordinated with him on a project. Yeah. Well,
And
good. Oh, who's this beautiful?
That's my wife, Margarita. So that was probably an anniversary or something of ours.
Oh, sweet.
But in any event, she was born in Cape Verde. And so Cape Verde suddenly has appeared in people's vocabularies recently because of the World Cup. And so people that have never, so she finds it amusing, people that have never heard of Cape Verde, but they say, wow, those guys from Cape Verde were really good. And then she'll say, well, I'm from there. I never knew, the people never knew, right? But that's where she was born. Yeah.
Did you meet in school in Columbia?
No, we met earlier than that. I was going to school. We kind of put each other. We got married. We've been married for 100 years, and we put each other through school. I already had my bachelor's degree, but we put each other through master's degrees, and I got my doctorate,
nice.
and she became an APRN. And,
Nice.
So
but she's retired now.
She's retired.
So
yeah.
she can breathe a little.
Oh yeah, she's loving it too.
Good.
And this is Margarita and me at the Pride Festival. This was last year's Pride Festival, but we went this year as well. And as a city councilor, we like to make sure that, I like to make sure I'm going to different kinds of events and supporting folks and friends. And many of the people that participate in Pride are friends from church and neighbors that, I'm close with. And so that was just a fun picture to take.
Well, there's nothing like seeing somebody that's a political person out there in the community doing different things, because you're thinking, wow, they know what's going on and they know the people, and that's when you get the offhanded remarks that you need to pick up on and follow through on.
100%, yes. Yeah.
Is that it for pictures?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that was really nice. That was a quick, we didn't, wait, here's another one.
Oh yeah, well this is my dining room, and these were the candidates for city council, and we met on frequently at my house to.
There's Riona. I know Riona.
Yeah, and Riona, and there's Akil Peck, and then Shanaika Ferus in between them, and then there's Victoria Muller sitting with her arms crossed in the front, and that's Ephraim again, and that's John Sadai, who's the president of the council.
Oh, very sweet. Wow, that was so nice of you. This is the picture I wanted to see.
This is my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, and I were in my backyard, essentially, at Alewife Cove. I'm a member of the Alewife Cove Conservancy and have been for a while, and she is a young student at University of Chicago, but she loves to go kayaking with me when she comes to visit, and so we were going out for a half an hour, and 2.5 hours later, we were looking at crabs and discovering things, and then, of course, she likes to comment on policy issues, because that's who she is, and which is lovely.
Well, it's that downtime, and I think it circles back to the conversation that we were having previously, that when you have those special moments when you're alone together in the kitchen, going for a hike, on the water, whatever it is, that's when you get the nuanced words and messages and the undertow to whatever it is that you're talking about, and that's why those special times are so important.
Absolutely. And of course I'm delighted that I have grandchildren that want to come and spend time.
Of course.
And they're just delightful. I'm very grateful for
How many grandchildren do you have?
Well, we have 4, and then we have 2 more that were recently added when my youngest daughter got married to a gentleman who has 2 children from a previous marriage.
Nice.
So
you're very lucky.
So they're around, and he takes them on they're 2 boys. He takes them on a boys' journey every summer, and so I happened to be in Washington the week before last at a work-related conference, and they were visiting the Smithsonian and this sort of thing. So we connected and walked through a couple of the Smithsonian buildings, and had a chance to connect, and they were surprised to see me, of course.
Of course, that's really sweet. So I love it that you have an educational background, that you've got a PhD, that you are so well versed in ethics and AI. Everyone's talking about AI, but what do you think about the future of education? And like they're talking about no cell phone, bell to bell, from when you first get in to when you first leave. And what do you think the digital impact is on kids? I see you out there with your granddaughter kayaking. Like, why is being outside important? Like, what are your words of wisdom?
Well, it's a very challenging time. I think every human would agree with that. This is a very challenging time, whether it's global warming, whether it's political and
unrest, perhaps, is a good way
around
of
the world,
it.
and new forms of warfare and all kinds of things. And then on top of that, we have this new change in computing and a new language that goes with it. So suddenly we're talking about tokens and compute and all this vocabulary that goes along with AI. But in my opinion, AI is not the end of the world.
Right.
And many of us, including I would say both of us and many of your viewers, have been already using it. I mean, if you ever used Google, you're using a form of AI.
We have.
And all of those things, right? But it is getting more complex.
It is getting more complex. It is, yeah. And I still think that we need to know, like, what the capital of New Mexico is, or how to skip count, or your multiplication. Do you agree with that, or do you think that? Yeah,
I do, and I think that what we need to do as educators is to make sure that we're recognizing these tools and also recognize the importance of individual creativity, and so making sure that we don't just give an assignment that you can just put in a couple sentences and it spits out the assignment for you, but it has to then weave in personal stuff. Where did you go to school, and what did you experience, and what things? So it can't just be, here's some facts, but you can mix facts, which is important, and verify them, of course, but then weave in your own personal story and also your own hopes and dreams.
The nuances of it, and I think if we use AI, it's almost going to deepen the conversation, if anything, if you possibly use it, because they'll lay out all of the pros and cons or the facts supporting each position, but then to your point, you're going to have to nuance it or to weave in my experience would lead into this. So action research that you used to do when you were an educator, and all of those components of it.
And it's not going away. I read a book recently by Neil Williams, the Irish writer, called "This Is Happiness," and it's a story. It's a novel that he wrote about a little town in Ireland when electricity comes. So electricity comes to town, and it's all about putting up the poles, and did people want it or they didn't want it, and how it changed things. And so I'm reading this delightful book, and he's such a beautiful writer, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is a lot like how people are now experiencing AI. And so it's a beautiful book about a little imaginary town called Faha in a rural place in Ireland, where people have to deal with this newfangled thing called electricity, and do they want it or not? And of course, at the end of the day, of course, most people get it, and we know what happens next.
Well, and change is difficult, but I think we almost need to embrace change and to think of it as an opportunity, and how to mitigate the impact or the negative effects of it, and move forward with it in an ethical, thoughtful, beneficial way for everybody, if that's possible.
And I think it's possible if we work together on creating guidelines and making sure that the companies that are creating this are also keeping their eye on, in an ethical way, on how this is speeding up, because the large language models of AI are able to speed up faster than we are. And so I know recently, I'm sure you read about this, that there was one of the AI bots that was practicing created a virus that had never been seen before on the planet Earth.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
Yes, well, there you go. So we need to make sure that kind of stuff, that there's some guardrails there.
The whole conversation is just so fascinating. Now, you're involved with educational programs at Learn and the Magnet School. Now, how is that going? What's going on over there?
Well, magnet schools are, and many people don't really understand the term magnet school.
Okay.
I know you do, but the magnet is that it draws kids in from across town lines.
And why is that important?
Yeah. And so it gives a choice for families, so you have a choice of where you want to go to school. And then in the case of New London, where many years ago I started the Nathan Hale Performing Arts Magnet School, which still exists today, it brings people in from other towns that are interested. And so it creates a mix of kids that's different than suburban schools or just traditional urban schools.
So because we're both interested, imagine we're both students at Nathan Hale, we're both interested in theater arts, perhaps, performing arts, then we would come together, whereas maybe you and I would never have met, and then we would be like, oh, we were in this play together, and the barriers are diminished, and we develop a friendship and a relationship. Is that what happens?
It absolutely does, yes. And so it's a beautiful thing, and we have the Regional Multicultural Magnet School in New London.
A beautiful facility too, by the way.
Old building, right?
That was renovated, and it's lovely.
It is.
And they teach both English and Spanish there, correct?
Yes, they do. And so you have a choice of how deeply you want to go. You can just learn, if you're an English speaker and you just want to learn Spanish, that's an option. If you are a Spanish speaker and want to maintain your Spanish and then learn English at a high level, you can do that too. There's different ways you can handle it, which I think is appropriate.
I think it's lovely.
And a lot of it's done through culture too. So it's not just the grammar book. It's, what about food? What about dancing? What about singing? And all those things.
So it's actually like the dancing, the singing, the art, and wow, that's just so beautiful. All of that is lovely.
And we also have the Marine Science Magnet School here in Groton, which is a fabulous small high school, which, as you can tell, is focused on marine science. And I love to say this, our graduation rate, 100%.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
And the kids really take to it, and the principal's fabulous, and the teachers are amazing. And you go there to visit, you say, this is a school where kids are focused.
Energy.
And a very positive energy. And it's a mix of just what you described. It's kids from all over the place, and and they go on to do really great things.
Well, I think that's where you learn better, when you're not just people that are your typical peers, perhaps, where you have a variety of people from different I don't know, stages in their life and different backgrounds, that sort of thing. So, wow, you're doing a lot with all of that.
And we do currently have at Regional, I have to make this plug if I may.
No, that's great.
Regional Multicultural Magnet School is expanding to include middle school. We're doing it one grade at a time. So this coming September, coming soon to you, 6th grade, and the following year 7th grade will be added, and then the following year 8th grade. But the idea is that there'll be a small, very family environment for middle school. Middle school is oftentimes something that causes a lot of trepidation for many parents about their children going into middle school, but this is a very small environment where people know each other, and I highly recommend checking it out, and it's completely free. Parents should know that it's 100% a public school that is completely free to them.
And what is the area that you could come from? Is it New London County,
Yes.
basically?
Yes.
Okay, so like 51 different towns.
Yeah, and we do have people that come from out.
As far away as Basra or far or Voluntown?
Well, there are a few that are very far away, and then sometimes that's associated with the parent's work. So if a parent's driving to work at the hospital or in the courts, etc., then they might bring their child from that town because they want that experience for them.
Nice, I love that. So I'm thinking, Chris, that we've had a lot of, wow, the time just really flew by here. It's almost been 30 minutes. But I'm thinking about brainwave activity and what happens, in your brain with the neurons firing and people really thinking and developing their gray matter and all of that. Do you have any concerns about that as far as some of the new learning, and how are we going to nuance that or bring that so that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a work in progress for all of us, and as we know, humans have, we were hunter-gatherers at one point. We were farmers. We built small cities. I won't go through the whole thing, but there's been changes all along, and there have been some missteps, right? I mean, when you think of Dickensian England and all those, smoke in the air and the polluted water, that was something that people that came from the farm had to deal with and figure out ways to solve it. We're going to have some things we have to solve now.
So the Socratic method isn't going to be thrown out the window, and we need to continue to ask questions, ask for clarification, dive deeper, dig deeper, and probably even listen better is what I'm thinking. So AI is not going to do our thinking for us, and we need to be able to think and be more analytical and critical,
and then assess your own values too. I mean, some people are very interested in keeping the earth clean. Some people are interested in maybe keeping neighborhoods functioning safely. Some people want to go into a lab and figure out ways to get to Mars. That's fine. That's another thing. But to make sure that you're allowing kids to see themselves in the future. I always say, imagining a future with you in it. I'll say to a kid that's like,
I love that.
Because
I love that.
They're going to be there. And
Well, thank you so much. You've just been an absolutely delightful guest, and we definitely need to come back, and we need to work together. And you're on the board now for SEC TV, so I think that's a beautiful, we can do some great work there.
Well, Cate, thank you very much for inviting me.
That was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stories Worth Telling, Chris Clouet, Dr. Clouet from New London.
All right, was that okay?